Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Gray Area. I'll start in prayer. God, please open my mind to new ideas, possibilities, and perspectives. Give me the ability to discern the truth. Help me to connect with others despite our differences. Help me to not lean on my own understanding. Lord, we invite you into this conversation. Have your way.
I'm going to go right into the gray area introduction. Have you ever thought to yourself, what is God's perspective on my situation? Does it align with his perspective? Introducing the gray area. The gray area is designed to challenge your thinking. Many times we don't realize it, but the way we're raised, the things our parents taught us, school, society, and experience all play a part in how we think and perceive things. Perception is everything. We're both mothers, wives, daughters, friends, ordinary women who love God. Yet our one goal, our one desire is to please him, integrate his way and his perspective into our lives. This is not always easy, especially when we've been programmed to think a certain way. However, God has purposed us to challenge others on their very belief system. Does it align with his? We often try to see things black and white, wrong and right, good and bad, but this thing called grace and love does not allow us to see things so simple. Everyday conversations, discussions, and situations through the lens of God is our prayer. We invite you to listen to our conversation and chime in. Perspective matters. Before we get started, we're really excited about tonight's discussion. If you want to chime in, just hit *6. We'll see you in the queue, and we'll be able to take your call from there. Sure, you want to set the table?
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you wanted me to set the table tonight. All right, so tonight concludes our conversation on time. I think it's a really important topic. We realized, I think, through the last few conversations that we've had how important time is and, you know, how time isn't promised to any of us. And, you know, each of us as individuals have the same 1,440 minutes in each day, and it's important that we use every minute wisely. Time equals life. So today, our last question in the time series, we're going to talk about what techniques and strategies that we could all bring to the table to kind of increase our productivity and allow us to maximize the time that we have through each day so we actually get things done. So do you have any tips, Shanae? What do you use as a tool to kind of maximize your time on a daily basis?
I think this is still a work in progress for me. It's still something I struggle with. And as I'm going through the process, because this series has really been an eye-opener for me, I realized that I first have to be okay, because we talked last week about mastering time and learning how to say no and being comfortable with no, because many times when I say no, I end up feeling guilty. So I think the first thing is kind of just having that freedom to really prioritize, which you talked about a few weeks back, and being comfortable with my decision on how I utilize my time. So I'll give you an example. So let's say I say no, that I can't hang out with you today. You know, I think I struggled with, I think I struggled with many feelings of guilt, which to me also took up a lot of space and energy. You get what I mean? And then I end up, sometimes you end up spending a whole hour making a decision about telling someone no, for example. And that's like precious time lost. So I think, I know it sounds like a really silly technique, but I think for me, especially for people who struggle to be, decisive, it's really being absolute about your decision and feeling comfortable with it. Because there's, like I said, there's some decisions that I struggle with, and it may take me an hour before I really get to ultimately what I want to do. And then when I look back, I'm like, I spent a whole hour just sitting here when ultimately I just wanted to say no in the first place. So I think that is one thing that I'm learning is important. What about you?
That's good because, I think back to our intro and how we talk about how we were raised and, how we were brought up and just societal, is that a word? Societally and just overall, I think we all want to be, the nice person or, we want to help others or, and a lot of those things don't takes up a lot of our time. And I think that's where the guilt comes in. You want to say no in the beginning, but then that whole feeling of, am I helping somebody? Am I being there for somebody? That ultimately messes up everything, So I think that whole thing, and I think in the beginning when we first start those actual no's, when we realize, okay, I can't do that, because if I do that, then that means, I'm going to be backed up. I'm not going to be able to do other things that I really need to do. I think when we start doing it in the beginning, it's hard, but I think if we make a conscious effort, it'll get easier, and then people will understand and respect where we're coming from,
That's what I wanted to talk about tonight, was the respect portion. I don't know. I mean, we talked a little bit about it, is, how do you get others to kind of respect your time, because I think that kind of attributes to what we're talking about in terms of that guilt. But I don't want to go off topic, because I know we're supposed to talk about strategies. But I think that that's an important piece, because we talked about our respect for time, but it's like, how do you say no, or how do you feel free when other people don't respect your time? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's, it's true, but I think it starts with us. I mean, I'm just listening. Because I'm figuring it out too, and I'm just thinking, we spoke about meetings earlier, right? And I'll just tell everybody. So, Shanae and I, we both a ministry. We both co-head a ministry, and we were talking about scheduling some meetings and stuff like that. And I was just telling her that I feel like many meetings are a waste of time. And then sometimes even in the meeting, when you open it up to others for input, it extends the time, and sometimes we could just keep going on forever and ever and ever. And I feel like it's kind of slowly but surely we have to teach others how to respect our time. I don't think everybody's going to respect, everybody has it on them for their personal, how I feel about my personal time. But I think I have to make a line in the sand, like this is where it's going to end in the beginning of the meeting, or whatever it is, where it's going to be 45 minutes. After 45 minutes is up,
good.
It's done. Good. There's no more.
I was going to ask you that.
Us. Yeah.
I was going to ask
but
you
we
if you
have
put
to do
limits
it
on time. Do you?
Yeah.
Put limits on time?
Yeah. Absolutely. One of the techniques, and I guess this is a good segue in, but we'll get back to your question. But I think it's important, and one of the techniques that I just started doing, because I was listening to what's that guy that owns the basketball team? He's on Shark Tank.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm sure everybody knows who I'm talking about, but he started talking about how, a lot of people work from lists, and lists aren't what you should be working for. You should be working from a calendar. So it actually puts a time to what you're actually doing, so it's not like you're just working off of a list, but you're putting time around each thing. So if you want to accomplish something, you're not like you just have an endless amount of time to do it. No, I'm going to check my emails, and it's only going to be 15 from 9 to 9:15, and you have it from a calendar. So you kind of, that's kind of probably far-fetched. I'm sure he doesn't have that down, but if we put time limits on things that we want to accomplish, I think that will also allow us to finish tasks and focus the energy, because we know we have a allotted time designated to a certain thing. You know what I mean?
That's a really great technique.
I think so. I just started doing it, and I find that I'm actually getting things done. So and completing them,
One of the things I do, because you said he doesn't like lists, I do lists.
I do too.
At work, and I find that it helps me stay organized and stay true to what the meeting's about. I know we use meetings as an example, but my meetings are not long. Once I make an agenda and I stick to that agenda, and like you said, you leave 10 minutes for questions, and if you find that people are still asking questions, I say, okay, you know what? I think we should have a conversation separately. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I'm very focused and intentional about meetings, because like you said, meetings can go on and on and on if you allow it to, and it could be sometimes drooling, So I think for me at work, I've somewhat mastered it, but I find it a challenge in my personal life, And I think getting back to those feelings of guilt, I don't think I feel as guilty at work that I do when I make personal decisions about how to utilize, like personal decisions on how to utilize my time in my personal life, you know? So work is pretty simple, but I think I find it difficult in my personal life.
To strategize your time. I think that's true too. It all like falls apart after we get home, right? You know, it falls apart. But then again, you know we have to do, you know, another thing, again, I'm listening to the same guy that he was saying that it's important to have, and this is not, you know, I'm saying this because as a mom and having to do with two girls, having to do hair and homework and, you know, and I have my son too, so I have three, as you know, but hair and homework and laundry and the list goes on and on. I think it's important that we have certain days that we focus on certain things. Obviously, homework is every day, but we don't have to do laundry. You know, we can pick a day to do that, or pick a day to do hair, or pick a day to do, you know, so it's not like it's so overwhelming. And if we can stick to that and have like the mindset around it where, you know, we think about the conclusion rather than the process, I think that's also important too, you know, if we can actually, so it doesn't seem so overwhelming, you know.
Yeah,
so.
I think that's a great strategy and technique. That's something that I just started because I read about that, and I haven't like mastered in every aspect. Like I want to start doing meal planning, but I definitely have found myself trying to have specific days where specific things happen. And I find that since I'm more intentional, because that's another strategy, being intentional with your time, like really, you know, trying to be mindful about your usage of it. You know, if it's family time, really be intentional about how to utilize that family time. And if it's your you time, your me time, being intentional about taking that time and saying, you know, like I have a gift card for the spa. So I already have a date that I want to focus on just me. And I think that's another important piece. I think that another strategy, and I don't want to keep going on and on, but I think another strategy for me is having like peace. Like when I'm when things are peaceful and I'm not as stressed, I find myself being able to manage my time a little bit better, you know. But when my life is chaotic and I don't feel like I have a handle on the schedules and what's happening, I find that I make poor decisions on my time. So I think that really making sure you're in a good space mentally is super important because it allows you to think freely is also important.
I agree. I think that is, honestly, I feel like that could be all the way at the top of the list. You know, last week I mentioned, and I'll just say it again, that getting in that right mind space is super important, and I'll share how I do is, you know, every morning I think it's super important that we are intentional about how we spend those first few minutes when we wake up. Like I said, every morning I wake up, I set my alarm clock, 6 o'clock. So from 6 o'clock to 6:30, I'm spending it with God. And it's important for me to do that because it gives me, before I check any social media platforms, before I check email, before I talk to anybody, the first 30 minutes of every single day, I spend it with God, and I meditate. I meditate on His Word. I am very intentional about that. I don't even speak to Ainsley, which is my husband, in the morning before I speak to God. And it gets me in that right mind space in order to function throughout the rest of the day. I can approach people without anger. I can talk in love. I can not let certain things get to me because I am allowing, you know, in the beginning, God to focus my mind. Where should it be? And not only just that, it allows me to be so much more productive throughout my day, you know, making sure that things actually get done and I follow through with them. So I think, you know, everyone can, I think that's what I know that's what we're supposed to do. That's not just a thing. I know that's what we're supposed to do.
Well, I think
ultimately, even achieving things.
I think the scripture talks about it's like transforming and renewing your mind daily, you know, and I feel like when you don't, I think the Bible is so intentional with that. If you don't, you end up with having like a whole bunch of clutter. So I think that is like a super important strategy to kind of follow. Another interesting strategy that I hear people talk about, I mean, I haven't fully quite executed it, is having morning meetings. Whether it's you mentioned, I guess it's a morning meeting with God, but even a morning meeting with your family or your children.
Yeah.
I mean, I started last year, on our way to school, we would pray and I would give them words of affirmation. But that's as far as it went. But I noticed when me and the kids are coming home late, and I say, hey, guys, this is what's going to happen when we come in. You're going to come in. You're going to wash your hands. You're going to eat your dinner. You're going to take it very specific. And I find that they respond really well to that. So I'm using that example of that, that one thing if maybe I applied it to a morning meeting and saying, hey, this is what we're going to do today, and this is how it's going to get done. Kind of just, like I said, being intentional about your day from the start and kind of speaking it into the atmosphere. Because words are power. That's really good. Too. Yeah.
That's good because, I mean, think about it. I think, the kids, I know they work well off of structure, and I think we're the same. I think we need structure, at least some type of structure. I mean, I'm not saying every second has to be accounted for, but I think structure is important in order to get, ultimately achieve and fulfill all the things that we want on our purpose list or our accomplishment list, so everyone keep in mind, if you want to join the conversation, just press *6 and we'll see you in the queue, and you can add some of your techniques and strategies or ask a question. Again, we're talking about time and strategies, but yeah, I think all those things are really, really good. Another one that I actually heard was keeping a notebook. And I thought at first that was, you heard of that?
I have this notebook that I carry it around with me, but it's a multi-purpose notebook, meaning I'll write my thoughts, I'll write my to-do list if I feel the urge to, I'll write, it's just my walking around notebook. If I have to take notes, if we're talking and you say something that's really important, but I haven't, I mean, it's not really specific towards anything, but I definitely have something that I walk around with. It's my little pink notebook.
I think that's it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Any little thing, because sometimes things come to our mind and we need to jot it down because we'll forget it, or something someone said is super important. Just having that book, I think, because we forget so much, just constantly, and oh man, I forgot to do this, something that was really important. So I think just walking around with that notebook, they said it's life changing, and being able to refer back to some things is really, really, really life changing. So I started doing it too. So I also have my planner and I have my notebook that I keep in my purse. And just because I really this year, because there's so many things on the plate, I just want to make sure that I maximize and accomplish everything that I'm supposed to. So, I'm willing to try, all of them, and some of them might fall by the wayside, but, some of them might actually allow, us to accomplish or maximize our time. And I think that's super, super important,
I have some more strategies when I was doing some research and just talking to people throughout the day. One of them was minimizing interruptions.
So that's good. That's true.
That can be challenging, but I think that in order to kind of follow through and see that things kind of happen and flow the way that it should, you almost have to. Do you close your door at work if you're in the middle of a project, Or if you're working on something, do you not take phone calls? Or how many times a day do you pick up your phone when you're supposed to be working on something else? And I'm guilty of that. My phone
I'm very guilty
too. Because you're getting text messages and, people are calling and, maybe you like to scroll Facebook. So I think that minimizing interruptions is super important.
Very, very. And I'll second that because I am – we email and all sorts of things. So, and like you said, text messaging, and that can take up a ton of time going back and forth, and it cuts you off from what you're doing. It's you lose your momentum. So
yeah, depending on your work style or your personality, that one phone call can kind of throw everything off. So you also kind of have to know yourself. If you know that once you're off track, it's hard to get back on, or like sometimes you're in a flow, right? I mean, you mentioned to me, like, I think it was yesterday, you accomplished so much, you got into like a zone, and just imagine if you stopped for every little thing, sometimes it kind of throws you off and it's hard to get back on track. So I think that one was pretty good as I was talking to someone.
I just want to add to that real quick. I think I read a long time ago, don't quote me everybody, but this part is true. They said the first 2 hours of your uptime, your awake time, is your most critical, where you could actually accomplish the most. Like your focus is there, everything is there, the first 2 hours. After that, you start to like lose a little. So if you could accomplish, or try to make sure that those distractions don't come in the first couple of hours in the morning or in the beginning of your day, you could also accomplish much more. So I think that is super, super important. So, sorry, go ahead.
No. Tell me how you feel about this one. Multitasking. Some people were saying that you have to limit your multitasking. Now, I feel like I'm the queen of multitasking, but I guess you have to kind of question if you're really effective when you're focused on so many things. So what are your thoughts about the multitasking? Do you feel like it can hinder you from being productive and making good use of your time, or do you think it's impossible, like, to even not consider multitasking?
I think it depends on what you're doing. I think it really depends on what you're multitasking. I think some things require 100% focus, and I think other things you can multitask because it doesn't require, much. You can use your hands and use your brain. You can, do laundry and cook dinner, or, talk on the phone and wash. I could, wash one of my daughter's hair or something like that. You can multitask. But when it requires you to actually, when I'm, thinking about a presentation that I'm going to do, or when I'm doing some research for I don't know, chemicals or something, it requires my focus. So I can't do several things at once. So I think it depends on what you're actually doing.
Okay. I have one more, and I think that this is like my challenge for everyone on the call, even myself, is said, stop procrastinating. So and I think that is so good. I mean, I have so many things on my wish list, and I think procrastination is like the biggest thing. You procrastinate and say, oh, I'll get to it. I'll do it tomorrow. Or I'm going to do it when, my husband comes home and something happens and, distractions happen. So procrastination, it's almost like, because we talked about this and I don't think I had an answer. You had said, like, how do you ensure that you execute something? Like, what stops you sometimes from executing? And I was really thinking about it, and I think it's that follow through. Like, you can't procrastinate. I give you an example. If you have a thought, like, to do something, you kind of just have to do it. Because the minute that you put it off, there's so many things that kind of get in the way. And I know it's easier said than done, but I really do think that that's that little trigger that kind of separates those that are really productive from those that are not. It's just that simple. Like, you can't procrastinate. You just have to do it. Like Nike, just do it. You have to execute. So I think that for me, that is, like, very big. And I find that I have my days. There's times when I'm, like, in a flow, in a zone. I'm getting it done. I'm doing everything that I set out to do. And then there are other days where I'm just, like, it's challenging. And I think it's all the things that we've talked about that's wrapped up. It's like my mind is cluttered. I'm trying to do too much. I have too many interruptions. So I think the procrastination thing is, like, very big. Like, if we could just take that one thing that we've been trying to do and, like, just stop procrastinating and just start the process, I think if we start the process and you trust God, I think He'll help you. But we have to start the process. So whatever it is, like, if it's writing a book or, whatever big thing that you have in mind, I think that we procrastinate, and then it's 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Like, I've been wanting to write a book, and I started, and then I never resumed. So I think that that's, like, really, really important. You have any challenges or closing remarks?
I think mine in closing, I have, like, two quick things. One, and I think it kind of went along with yours, but maybe not, is the touch it once. I have a serious problem with the procrastination, and also, like, opening mail or opening, like, emails. I have tons and tons and tons of them. So I feel like I should have that, deal with it, like, don't open it until I'm ready to deal with it kind of mentality. I think that's super important. And also, I think in terms of procrastination as well, I think is, trying to change the way I think in terms of thinking more about the outcome than what I have to do to actually get there, because I think that stops me from doing what I need to do. So instead of thinking about the million, like, oh my gosh, I got to do this, I got to do that, I focus more on the outcome and what I'm going to get out of something rather than what I have to do to get there. And I think that's going to be my challenge to myself, stop procrastination. And I would hopefully, I want to challenge everybody on the phone if they struggle with procrastination as well, just focusing on the outcome and how good that's going to be when you get there rather than what you have to do to get there. And I think that's it for me.
Good. That's really good. Well, I enjoyed tonight's discussion. I hope and I pray that, those that took the time to listen, that you guys really were able to get something out of it. And I think we should, close out in prayer tonight. Do you want to start the prayer, or you want me to do it, Tishy?
You can pray.
Okay. Father God, we thank you for this opportunity to reach others, Lord God. Lord, we come before you on this night, asking you to help us with whatever we have set forth, Lord God. Help us to be able to execute. Help us to be able to be doers and be able to complete tasks, Lord God. Help us to focus, Lord God. Whatever we have before you, oh God, let us put our trust and our faith in you that we will be able to get it done, God. Lord, we thank you and we honor you. In Jesus' name, and amen.
In Jesus' name. Bless everybody on the phone, and thank you, everyone, for listening. Please follow us on Instagram, Facebook, at The Gray Area Conversation. Email us with future topics that you'd like for us to talk about at thegrayareaconversation@gmail.com. We are on Podbean, so you can follow us there, and we're also on iTunes. And we thank you so much for listening, and we look forward to meeting with you again next week, Wednesday at 9:30. Have a great night.
Good night.